Hello, welcome to the Pluralsight Spotlight. I'm your host for this episode, Julie Lerman. Our Spotlight series is a chance to meet some of the incredible people that make the Pluralsight brand awesome. We'll dive into their personal backstories and hopefully share some fun experiences and insights that will help you become just a little bit better at whatever you're doing. Today, my good friend Kate Gregory joins the spotlight, and I'm honored to be hosting this one as we are old friends. Kate is a C++ MVP. She develops courses primarily on C++ for Pluralsight and occasionally writes a new book. She's one of the founders of Include C++, working to make the C++ community more welcoming and inclusive. Her firm, Gregory Consulting Limited, is based in rural Ontario and helps clients adopt new technologies and adjust to the changing business environment. Kate is also the author of over a dozen books and speaks at conferences around the world with keynotes on 5 continents. Kate, thanks for joining us today and welcome to the Pluralsight Spotlight.
Thanks, Julie. It's a thrill to be here.
So, Kate, I've got to know, how did you find your passion for tech and more specifically for C++? And what led you to sharing that love for technology with others?
Well, that's a really long story. I started coding, I think I was coding in the 70s at university and on co-op jobs. And at some point along the way, I had learned Fortran and PL1 and some languages that don't exist anymore, and Smalltalk, and then from that C++. And that just clicked for me right away. And I've been using it since the mid-'80s sometime. I don't know the exact year. And I've wandered away to other languages, but I always come back to C++ because I just love it.
That I can understand. So you've received the Microsoft MVP Award for Visual C++ since 2004, and it was just renewed again last week. So congratulations on that. And what does it take to get there each year?
So people ask me that quite a lot. What do I have to do to be an MVP? And they think it's focused mostly on technical excellence. And you do have to have some chops. That's like the price of admission. You're not even considered unless you're good at what you do, but it's not sufficient. You have to be generous, and you have to give of your knowledge to other people, and then you get recognized for that. And over the decades, they've changed their definition of where you're generous, which online forums you're in, whether or not you blog, are you active on Twitter. I think it was my books that got me in at first. But that's the sort of underlying drumbeat. Like, what are you doing for other people? What are you sharing that you know? And if you're absolutely brilliant, but you work in a company where everything's proprietary and you never help anybody else, you're not going to get the recognition.
Well, your generosity goes above and beyond some of the normal things that a lot of the MVPs do. One of those things is that you founded Include C++, which is a global, inclusive, and diverse community for developers interested in C++. Can you tell me more about that?
So I'm a very literal person, and somebody made a joke, and I took it as a suggestion because we have the absolutely perfect name because, include is a preprocessor directive in C++. And we should be more inclusive, and we're really not. We're kind of famous for being one of the more toxic communities. And a bunch of us decided to try to do something about that. So we send people on scholarships that cover travel as well as admission to conferences by fundraising. We run a Discord server that doesn't mock people for not knowing things and patiently explains things at the right level if you're a beginner, but also has a super nerdy technicalities channel where we go all language lawyer. And, we built this community and this atmosphere, and it's hard work. It's really hard work, but it's so worth it because it lets people feel that they belong in the language that they love and the work that they're doing.
I think of all of that, the thing that spoke to me most deeply was giving people a safe place to ask questions and not feel stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, even with all of our years of experience, we don't know everything. And there are so many times when I'm looking at something that's new to me and I feel kind of dumb, right? But then I'm like, no, I've got 30 years of experience. So I can't even imagine how hard that is for somebody who's really new and coming in and hearing that.
There are communities that think it's funny to give bad advice. You know, like there used to be running jokes about telling people to do things that would format their hard drive. Like, you know, because you asked a dumb question, so I'm going to tell you a command, and if you type it, you'll lose all your files, and that'll just be so darn funny. And we don't even, in our beginners channel, you're not allowed to answer in an overly complicated way. You know, because a lot of times with a programming question, the answer is yes, but, or yes, except. And in the beginners channel, the answer is yes. You can go talk about the details somewhere else. The answer is yes. And, you know, don't overwhelm people with all the it dependes and edge cases and stuff.
So that is so much something that can be applied everywhere. And I hope that those lessons are being seen and absorbed in other communities, not just programming communities. And that's also part of why we teach on Pluralsight too.
Yes.
Like giving people an accessible way to learn something in a friendly way, but also, you know, people who really know what they're talking about. So
that's my brand.
That's another form of generosity. Yeah.
That's my brand. Like I totally know this, and I'm going to bring you into the club with me, and then you will know it, because it's really not that horrible. Come on, let me show you.
Yeah. And for me, it's also kind of relaying that aha moment. Here's how I got it. So, yes. You know, if you think like me, like here's what the key is for me, and you don't have to, you know, don't go through all the pain. I did that for you already. Right. Well, this is why we're such good friends. We have a lot of the same feelings about these things. So I want to get back to all of the amazing things that you're doing. And another one is that you're really involved with the CPP North Conference in Canada, which is a C++ conference. And it's the second year. And you just did the keynote yesterday morning, and I'm sure it was amazing. So how's that event going? And, you know, again, with all the things that you're doing for the C++ community, how does that fit in?
This conference is going so well. I'm so happy. You have no idea how hard it is to run a conference. Even the little part that I do is really hard, but it's just worth it. There are all these shiny, happy faces that are hearing things they hadn't heard before, that are learning things. Today, people are signing up to do lightning talks. So they started the week as an attendee, and they're prepared to join the speaker club by the second day. That's pretty impressive. Mike Dahm, our sort of lead organizer, is so committed to welcoming, belonging, inclusion. And we've put together a fantastic program. And it's some very well-known people, and it's some people speaking for the first time. And that's just exactly how I like to see it.
Let's continue. The list goes on with your contributions to the C++ community. Another one of the projects you're involved in is that you're a lead on the Carbon Language project. And I understand this is an experimental successor language to C++. I'm not really familiar with experimental languages. So why is it experimental, and what can be learned from this type of project?
Well, let me start by explaining what a successor language means. Like, if you use a particular language, every language in this world has flaws. There's things about it you don't like, that you wish you could fix. And some things cannot be fixed. And in the case of C++, it has an absolute priority to never break existing code ever, including existing C code. And as a result, you can't say like, oh, you know, this default is wrong. We'll change it. Because you would break a bunch of code that was using the old default. And you may never do that. So the idea of a successor language is, let's take the same population, the same ecosystem, perhaps even some of the same tools, and offer them a different language that meets their needs but is missing one or more of the flaws. And the particular flaw that Carbon wants to get out from under is what we call the handcuffs of backwards compatibility. So if you say from the beginning, we might change the defaults. And when we do that, we will also ship a tool to fix your old code, but we might change the defaults. We might change a keyword. We might change anything. That is a freedom to get started and to build a language. And then if it turns out we got it wrong, we can fix it because we're not committed to never breaking old code. Will we end up making a great language? We'll see. We're making good progress. It's been a year since the project went public. And we've had an interpreter type tool in Explorer, we call it, so that you can play around a little bit. But we're now just on the verge of being able to have a compiler, and people might actually start to be able to use it maybe even this year. Not for real production projects, but to try things out.
So if you do a Pluralsight course on Carbon, it won't be, and this course is done by the woman she wrote the book on Carbon. It is more, she wrote Carbon. She really knows it.
Well, it's a big team.
As part of a team, I understand. Yes. Yeah. So speaking of your Pluralsight courses, you've done a lot of courses on C++, and I also know you've done a bunch on Visual Studio as well. And some others. Was there GitHub?
I did a Stack Overflow course.
Am I remembering that right?
Stack
Overflow, yeah. That was it, right. But you've got a new course out, C++ 20 Algorithms Playbook. So what can people who take that course or any one of your courses expect?
I was just reminiscing in my keynote about a talk I watched 10 years ago, which really brought home to me how important the algorithms library in C++ is, and how often we write a loop and struggle through testing all of the edge cases. Did I go one too far, and did I start, and all of that, only to end up realizing that there's an algorithm already in the header to do that for us. And that really changed my life, and I started using the algorithms all the time. So a big part of the point of the course is to just say, whatever it is you're trying to do, it's a solved problem. You have a collection of thingies and you want to find the biggest one. Like, you're not the first programmer who needed that. That's not new. So it's set up as a playbook. After you watch the first module, you can then watch in whatever order, according to whatever you're trying to do. Like, if you don't care about finding, you might want to read the sorting chapter or whatever. And it got a lot bigger when I updated it for C++ 20 because there was some huge additions to the standard library. But I managed to keep it about the same length while covering more stuff, so I'm pretty proud of that.
That is always a challenge because you just want to brain dump when we build these courses, and keeping them to manageable lengths, or at least with a playbook, that's really it's different than the courses where we build a story, because the playbook is just can be bite-sized. Here's this thing, let's just focus on this, and you don't have to connect it to the rest of the course. So I really like that format also.
It's harder to write a playbook course because everything has to be independent. You can't say, as you saw in Module 3, but it's fantastic for the person. They know what their problem is. They come in, they play maybe even just one clip, and they know what to do, and they can carry on. It's fantastic.
So C++ has been around for a while. Like, this version of your course is C++ 20.
Well, it's year-based. That's okay.
Say it again?
It's because of the year. We release a new standard every 3 years.
Oh, okay. So how many years has it been around?
So it's a hard question to answer because Bjarne had something in his head that became C++, but he didn't release it as a C++ compiler. It was a tool called CFront, which took C++ code and converted it to C, which was then compiled by a C compiler. Then eventually there were C++ compilers. There wasn't a standard until 1998. But we're definitely...
Okay, that's a while.
Yeah, but it was at least a decade before
years.
that. Yeah.
Wow, holy smokes. So with all of that longevity, and then there's so many newer programming languages out there, why would someone still use C++? And I think I know why you use it. You love it. You love it.
So I will say that it is a language that people love. You don't meet no one that I've ever met loves Java. They use it for their job. I think there are some people who love Rust that much. It's fun. But it's a very performant language. If you need speed, you can have speed. You can control things. In a lot of languages, it's like, don't you worry your pretty little head about that. We're going to take care of that for you. And C++, like, you can write code that way where other people will take care of stuff, or you can take control over performance if that's what matters to you. And really, other languages aren't offering that. The other thing is it has an enormous ecosystem. Because it's standards-based, there are compilers from multiple vendors. There are IDEs from multiple vendors. People write libraries for it because they know there's people who will consume the libraries. In certain fields, oh, you want to do that audio processing or whatever, you have to work in C++ because you have to use this library. It's the best ever. I mean, obviously things like, JSON parsers and stuff, everybody writes them for every language, but there's big chunks of work that are really, you got to work in C++ because that's what the libraries are expecting you to be using. So you've got millions upon millions upon millions of C++ programmers all the world over. That's a big audience to reach.
Yeah. It's funny because, I came in to this, from a whole bunch of things, but eventually landed on Visual Basic. And, it's also got history and so many applications written it and, tried and true, but it definitely does not have the continual longevity. And I think one of the big reasons also is because of the C++ community, and people are still constantly investing in it. So it's pretty interesting. I mean, you just cannot compare the two, I know. So, Kate, this was so much fun, and it gave me an opportunity to, of all the conversations we've had over the last 20 years, these are things we haven't really talked about before. So that was really fun for me, and I hope for the Pluralsight Spotlight audience. So thank you so much. And also, for those of you watching, do check out the show notes to see any of the resources that Kate's mentioned here. And we hope you'll follow or subscribe or review this series and send us any feedback you've got on how we can improve the format for future episodes. And again, Kate, thank you so much. I miss seeing you in person, but this was really awesome to do.
It sure was, Julie. Thank you so much.